What is inner freedom?
Inner freedom is realized your own love. When you love yourself, you become free. When you realize the love of God, you become incredibly free. You see, and this freedom within you is, it really has no bounds. It's a fearless freedom. It makes you do anything and everything. It doesn't stop you when somebody is sick. It doesn't stop you when somebody is ailing. It doesn't stop you when even the biggest danger is lurking at you. It just will not. You will swing into action. You will do what needs to be done. Okay, whether it's your beloved, whether it is somebody else, it really doesn't matter. And the same way you are even trying to do the will of God. You just go full force. There is nothing that will stop you. See, that is called inner freedom. Inner freedom for the joy of God. See, this is what I describe in the book as bhakti. When inner freedom is towards God, it is bhakti. When inner freedom is towards yourself or towards another person, it is inner freedom. See, it just makes you go over and beyond. See, even in our lives, we have come up with soldiers. When one of their meat is injured, they will just walk into the line of fire to rescue that person. You have been a soldier. You have heard stories like that. How many of them? So many. See, and they are walking into the line of fire to rescue somebody. So they could get hit with the bullet anytime. That doesn't stop them. See, when you are looking at the first responders, nothing stops them.
And that's the result of inner freedom.
That's the result of inner freedom. It just makes you go over and beyond. Nothing could stop you. Nothing could stop you. See, when Mary Magdalene went into that dinner hall with so many high society men and did something that is so unbelievable, so sensuous, and even to Jesus, who she considers as God, could anything stop her? Any social protocol stop her? All those high society men who would readily judge her? She was not stupid. She knew that. But she did it. She did it. And she went on to do something openly, something so sensuous, openly to Jesus. Did she even stop to think, what is everybody going to think about Jesus when she accepts what she is going to do? Am I going to embarrass him? Nothing. Nothing could curtail her. Nothing could stop her. See, look at Mother Mary. Could anything stop her? See, even the Mosaic law at that time, if she conceives a child before the wedlock, she would be stoned to death. Did that stop her? She was a faithful woman. She knew the Mosaic laws. She's a very prayerful woman. But did that stop her?
Because an angel came and told her.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, even if an angel comes and talks to you. If death is staring at your face, you would think twice.
Yes.
If the consequence of your action is getting stoned to death, you will think twice about it. You will think twice about it. See, angel is coming and telling us something that is incredibly unlikely. How is she going to become pregnant, without a man? She had the question, yes. You see, but it is something that never happened before. She had no way of knowing, okay, this is how it is going to happen. There is nothing. There is nothing. Everything is so ambiguous, so unbelievable. And she says, okay. Because the only thing she had in mind was the joy of God.
Strong faith.
Is inner freedom something that not too many people have?
Inner freedom everyone can have, only if you learn to love.
Only if you learn to love, okay. Because that's the source. of
That is
freedom.
everything. If you learn, number one, learn to love yourself, okay? And then by way of loving yourself, learn to love others. And by way of learning to love others, love the one who created everybody. See, when Jesus gave that commandment, he gave the commandment in the reverse order. He said, love God, then love your neighbor. Then he said, as you love yourself.
See?
You see, so it really is the reverse order is what you need to get. Because you cannot love God unless you love your neighbor. You cannot love your neighbor unless you love yourself. You know what I mean? Because loving your neighbor, there is an addendum to it, and that is you need to do that as you love yourself. So if you don't love yourself, how can you love your neighbor? So that has an addendum to it. You need to love yourself. So love begins with you loving yourself. You pay attention to yourself, you loving yourself. You appreciating how God has created you, in every way possible. That appreciation evolves into everything else. Because one thing love is going to do for you, love is going to make you gain knowledge about your beloved. See, even when you love yourself, you are going to be opened up in many, many ways so that you can learn more about your own self. Who you are, what you are, and you will be learning a lot along the way. Okay? And that is why, in Hinduism it's called self-realization. It is not God realization, it is self-realization. So the realization of the divine begins with self-realization. So unless you are realized of yourself, then the realization of God comes after that. See, so the process of realizing yourself, it really starts with you just go look and stand in front of the mirror and see how perfectly God has created you. You see, and feel that appreciation, feel that gratefulness. Feel that gratefulness, because after all, God said, okay, that it's better. God created human being, and what did he say? It's better. Okay, so means it's better than the rest of the universe. Even in quantum theories, our consciousness is so powerful, so better, we can subdue and flatten other waves in quantum mechanics just by looking at it. We don't need to do anything extraordinary. So when in a laboratory, when you are looking at a particle and its wave function, if you stand there and look at it closely, it will flatten. That's how powerful we are. We don't need to touch them. We don't need to turn any knobs. Nothing. Just look. I mean, see, that's how powerful we are. So when we really observe ourselves, when we see how powerful we are as God created us, then the self-knowledge begins. When the self-knowledge begins, then the self-love, it really grows up exponentially. When the self-love and self-knowledge is there, then the knowledge of God, the joy of gratefulness, inner freedom, everything begins to set in. When these things set in, loving your neighbor is inevitable. You cannot stop. Because you can see how God has created the other person, just the way he has created you. But when you're looking at the other person, you're looking at a lot more than you're looking at yourself, because that objectivity, is not there. You are looking at the other person with more freedom, with more love, with with more independence, without any attachment. When you are looking at yourself or your desires and your attachments to yourself, it's parading with you.
Yeah.
But these are not there when you are looking at another person. See, so loving your neighbor becomes incredibly easy. See, love always has a sort of a reaction to it, meaning, something that it makes you feel, and we think a lot of the ways we want to interpret that as excitement or something joy and all of that. It's not just joy. It is not just excitement. There is an element of gratefulness in it. See, when you see somebody else loving you, or an animal loves you, or your grandchildren is loving you, and when you really rationalize, the feeling you are getting at that time, that rationalization will lead you to an understanding of the amount of gratefulness you have, in that exchange. So at the end of it, it is not the outcome that is joy alone. That joy comes with the joy of gratefulness. You see? So it is the joy of gratefulness that is going to take you closer and closer, not only to another person, but closer and closer to God. Because you know that He is the source of all the joy in the whole world. So the feeling of gratefulness cannot escape an encounter with God. You cannot. In an encounter in real or encounter even in consciousness. You cannot escape that. So that's how all these things come together and work together. So inner freedom is something it will happen. It will happen as a result of your love. And most of all, it's better to start inner freedom or start to enjoy inner freedom or to kind of begin to feel that is having inner freedom in the expression of your love. See, even as a couple, even as someone in your life, or your grandchildren, or your children, how do you express your love? Are you doing it with total inner freedom? When you are playing with your grandchildren, do you have the freedom to express your love, or are you bound by protocols?
Right. No, I chased them all over the house.
There we go.
All over the house.
That is inner freedom. That's inner freedom. No one could stop you.
No.
Yeah.
Because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And so much joy.
Yeah. That's what
and
it is.
so much love.
Yeah. But it becomes many times manifold when you see their inner freedom, when you see their joy, when you see...
It's contagious.
Yeah, it really becomes contagious.
Good word.
Yeah.
What?
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, contagious. Yeah.
Infectious.
Yeah.
It is. Inner freedom is terribly infectious. But the stories about bhakti, we don't see that as described in the Bible. You need to really read between lines. When you read about Mary of Magdalene, you see her inner freedom. I mean, gosh, she was there at the grave, at the burial site at the wee hours of the morning. When nobody else is there, she was there. You see, even Mother Mary was not there, but Mary Magdalene was there. You see, that's the kind of freedom that I'm talking about. Nothing could stop you. Nothing. That's, that's the beauty of it. See, and you see, when you're in Hinduism, in Hindu, in Hindu, mythology and all of that, the stories about inner freedom are incredible. There's so many of them. You would even begin to cry if you read them. It is that incredible. And it is so vividly described. But in the Bible, you need to read between lines. See, the inner freedom King David had, with God. You have to read between lines. The inner freedom of the psalmists, it's incredible. There are many stories like that of Abraham, another one. So, and there are Ezekiel, Prophet Elijah, Jeremiah. Their inner freedom is unimaginable. But you need to read between lines. In Hinduism, that's not the case because it's everywhere.